Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to, I don't know if that's working, February 6, 2024 work session. First, we'll review the agenda. We have, we'll have our regular beginning of the meeting, but then we'll have Idle Free Month. We have some visitors that are coming for that. We're not doing a proclamation or anything. We're just inviting the different people to speak, right?
Right.
Great. And then we've got approval of some minutes. Should be fun. And then, we have the election of new leadership. So we have the council chair and the vice chair. And then we have oath of office and then public comments. Should be pretty short. We'll try really hard to fit in all these things on the work session before, but just in case we might have to come back. We'll see how the discussion goes. Because I know some of the items are kind of complicated. Great. Well, first we'll invite Thomas Kiernan of the Ogden Downtown Alliance to give the annual report. You can step on up here, Thomas, if you'd like. Yeah, watch your head. Yeah, if you don't mind, and turn on your microphone so the people online can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Thomas Kiernan. I'm the Executive Director of the Ogden Downtown Alliance. Many of you are familiar with, should be familiar with, hopefully, the Ogden Downtown Alliance, but I'll just give you a brief refresher of what it is that we do. I'll read you our mission statement. That's the Ogden Downtown Alliance strives to connect the community to locally owned and independent businesses. We aim to increase economic vitality and community vibrancy in downtown Ogden through arts, events, placemaking, and destination development. I like to boil that down to what we really do is we bring people downtown more frequently and for longer to encourage spending. Our mission's the heart of everything we do. It really drives how we make decisions, what we decide to do and not do, the programming that we bring downtown. But really, we're just looking to connect the community with local businesses for economic vitality and community vibrancy. We're going to go through, we'll look at some of the events that we hosted in 2023 and then kind of talk about where we go from here as the Downtown Alliance. First, we hosted the Historic 25th Street Car Show on Historic 25th Street. This was June 2nd, 2023. This had 330 vehicles entered, sold out well in advance, over a month in advance. But this event hosted almost 25,000 visitors within the downtown area right there on Historic 25th Street. And we had an estimated economic impact of $1 million. This is a really fun family community event. It's free for the community to attend. We also had kids activities like an art project that kids could create cardboard cars out of boxes that were donated by Home Depot. We had supplies enough for 100 kids and ran out of those rather quickly to where they were making cars out of scraps and other things that they could find and then walking throughout the show.
They were so cute, by the way.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had
on the street.
Tons of great feedback on that. We also did 2,500 coloring books, and we hired a local artist to create artwork that featured local landmarks and obviously cars. And then we gave those out for free at the event. People took them home. Many of the local businesses also advertised inside of the coloring book. Tona Sushi provided colored pencils so that people could color while they were there. Great hit, great family-friendly event, and that one we're already getting requests for registration for 2024, and we're just in February now. So we also hosted the Harvest Moon celebration. This was the 22nd year of Harvest Moon. This event was started by local business owners, and we really just strive to make that event bigger and better every year. We regularly see about 30,000, upwards of 34,000 people at this event. for a number of years. We had about 31,000 visitors for this event this year and an estimated economic impact of $1.3 million. Let's see, it's a great celebration. This one kind of caps off the summer for us. We have several community and cultural performances that happen up and down 25th Street, as well as multiple main stages. And we actually close down the whole street and make it into a beer garden, which the community loves that as well. Farmers Market Ogden was 16 weeks this summer. This is kind of the crown jewel of what we do at the Downtown Alliance, the event that we produce. It was Saturdays, May 27th through September 9th, so 16 Saturdays, seeing an average of 21.5 thousand visitors each week at that market, with a high of the third week was June 3rd, almost 27,000 visitors that day. We estimate an economic impact over those 16 weeks of $14.7 million. This event has been voted the best farmers market in Utah by the American Farmland Trust 2 years running, 2022 and 2023, and hopefully 2024. We hosted an average of 220 vendors. These are local small businesses, whether it's a side hustle, their primary business. We prioritize local business owners for this. And we received over 400 applications to participate in Farmers Market Ogden. We'd love to see each of these businesses be successful and grow, and hopefully plant a brick and mortar someday in downtown Ogden. Another great highlight about this event is it brings local food to our community. So we prioritize local vendors for the food and produce and agriculture as well. And it's open and free for the community to come down and enjoy. And that really does bring all walks of life, including we have the ability to accept EBT benefits at Farmers Market Ogden through SNAP and Double Up food bucks. $22,984 were redeemed through SNAP and Double Up food bucks this summer at Farmers Market Ogden. And we're working really hard to make it even better coming this year. We plan on 17 weeks this year, and hopefully about the same 22,000 regular visitors. We also hosted the fall market on 25th Street. This is a streamlined and shortened version of Farmers Market Ogden. We have about 100 vendors that participate in this for 6 weeks. We see an average of 7,000 visitors there, and we had about $6,500 in SNAP and Double Up food benefits redeemed at the fall market, totaling 22 straight weeks of farmers markets hosted along 25th Street, and almost $30,000 in SNAP and Double Up food bucks. We estimate that together those events bring in about $18 million in economic impact for the local economy. With that, you've witnessed some incredible numbers. These are big events. They've grown significantly over the years. And I'm sure, just to provide a little bit of context on this, I'm sure many of you remember the sesquicentennial 150th celebration in 2019. That was a 3-day event. That was obviously statewide. And, several partners came together to make that happen. Ogden City, Visit Ogden, ODA at the time as well. And we hosted Thursday, Friday, Saturday, almost 54,000 visitors. And with the peak day being that Saturday, about 23,000 visitors. In 2023, June 2nd and 3rd, we hosted the car show on 25th Street. And then following that up the next day with Farmers Market Ogden. Both of those events drew about 25,000 visitors, so 50,000 people in 2 days. These events have grown significantly. They help to drive the local economy. The businesses along 25th Street and the surrounding areas feel very supported by the foot traffic that comes down during these events. And we're proud to produce them. We hope that the community enjoys them, and I believe that the community does. Um, we, like I said, on average about 21.5 thousand visitors each Saturday for Farmers Market Ogden. Those are the big things that we do. But again, bringing you back to bring people downtown more frequently and for longer to encourage spending. That's really what we focus on. Those events are just one aspect of what we do, but they're the most notable and what the community would really know us for. Aside from that, we also did some art calls together with Ogden City. You may have noticed some of the 9 Rails banners that went up 25th Street. Hopefully that helps to add to the aesthetic of 25th Street and get that foot traffic to move as it's down here. We also hosted Trick or Treat Streets, which is a window contest along with several business owners. I want to say we had about 14, maybe 18 businesses that participated in that and hundreds of votes on who had the best window. We're also the local representative for Shop Small Saturday from American Express. And we also hosted Window Wonderland in from November to December, which is another window contest. Those are the things we really hope to build on in 2024. And, you know, we really just strive to take the traffic that's here, help it spread around, get it to stay longer. And so in 2024, our focus is really going to be on how do we increase the amount of visits per visitor and the duration that they stay downtown. So like I said, hopefully that will encourage their spending. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I have a few. Thomas,
Absolutely.
thanks for coming this evening. First, did I hear you say the best farmers market in Utah?
Correct. We were voted best farmers market in Utah with by the American Farmland Trust.
That's outstanding. It doesn't surprise me, honestly, but congratulations on the recognition.
Thank you.
Help me understand a couple of things. First, on one of the slides, or all the slides, you highlighted dwell time.
Yes.
And how many visitors were there?
Yep.
It seemed like with fewer visitors, you've got longer dwell time.
Yeah, let me explain that. So the numbers are not exact, they're estimates. And so they're based on the time of day. And so during the summer, we have a longer time of day that we're measuring that over. Some of those visits may actually be captured as them visiting the businesses later, and I believe that that would actually take the dwell time down. It's just a matter of tracking the numbers. So the fall market is probably where you see that biggest increase, right? And that would be because we really limit the hours that we're tracking for that event in particular. Just because it is smaller, it is limited hours for that event, and it's actually within a smaller space too.
Okay, I was just wondering if maybe fewer numbers left people more comfortable and they stayed longer, which would lead me to the question, do you need more room for a farmer's market?
Yeah, if you've been to the market, it's busy, and we actually did a couple of things in 2023 to help alleviate some of that, and I think we're going to make adjustments again in 2024. But adjusting how we lay out the map, and one of the key areas that we focused on in 2023 was actually putting the majority of food truck and street food vendors together down in the 100 block. And then we have never had seating at this event. We set up Saturday morning, we tear down Saturday afternoon, try to get traffic back out there. And with that, we notice there's nowhere to sit, right? You see people along the curb, you see them over in the park. So we put everybody together to create kind of like a food court area. And one of the cool things that we could kind of see with this traffic tracking software is kind of a heat map of how people move. So in previous years, a lot of people would say that people would come to the produce area, they get their produce, and then they go home. We actually see that as not the trend anymore. Yes, we have a lot of produce buyers and they may leave after, but people are coming later, showing up later, 10 and 11 a.m. even, and staying longer. We believe that's from providing seating, providing specific areas to eat, better entertainment. We invested a lot of money in a new stage this past year with the help of a sponsor. All of those things are the specific areas that we're looking at to help people stay longer.
Okay, thanks. And then being unticketed events, how do you estimate attendance and how do you estimate economic impact?
So all of these numbers are derived from a software called Placer.ai. They call themselves I don't remember what they said. It's foot traffic tracking. It's based on a couple of things, primarily cell phone data, and they have avatars that they then extrapolate into an estimate, as well as merchant data. So we can see some data from Visa, American Express. All of that comes together to provide these numbers. That's a software that we have access to. And that's also how we can see heat maps of people moving throughout. Luckily, we have tons of traffic, and so that software works really well for us. There's some areas where they just don't have enough data to actually come up with that. So I don't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me on this, but the boundary that we've created that we call historic 25th Street in this software ranks very regularly in the top 30 nationwide for similar types of attractions, is what it calls it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what my question means.
All right.
Any other comments or questions?
So just to follow up with that, you said that the businesses are, I don't remember the word used, happy, we'll say that.
Yeah.
Feeling supported from the foot traffic. Do you go back and survey them or work with them to see if really indeed their foot traffic increased or their sales increased or anything like that during that time, not just using Placer?
Yeah, so I mean, some of that is direct face-to-face conversation with those business owners. But yes, we send out surveys quarterly and then monthly during the market to both vendors and local businesses. The responses that we see are they're very happy that we're putting the foot traffic there, right? Like obviously the parking goes away during these events, and so that's one of the main complaints, but we're bringing thousands of new visitors right to their doorstep. And so that's really kind of what I would call the goal of the Downtown Alliance, is to just put those people there in front of the businesses, and then hopefully they convert them into customers. But my experience, and I would believe what the surveys say, are that they appreciate and feel supported by the foot traffic that happens during the summer. One thing I'll say is that that same software that we use to track all of this data throughout the summer, Christmas Village actually rivals some of our highest days at Farmers Market Ogden, but a lot of that foot traffic is not moving in the same way in front of the businesses as it does. And so that's something that we as the Downtown Alliance actually want to help fix in the future, knowing what that software can do and what it's telling us.
And just one other quick, sorry, just
Yeah, sure.
I'll hurry up. So you said something about hopefully moving some of these vendors into more of a brick and mortar. Are there programs to help them do that? Do we have further grants, opportunities, those kind of things to help them do that?
No grants, unfortunately. That's something that I would like the Downtown Alliance to, in the future, be able to facilitate. Right now, what we try to do is put them in touch with other resources like the Business Information Center, CED. Hopefully, we're connected with property managers and stuff, and then they see the success of those events and they want to be on 25th Street, right? They want to be close there.
And just to kind of verify that, I'm sorry. There's a woman that I've met in several different locations. Her name is Annie Dunaway, and
Yes.
and Annie has just bought a building.
She closes this week.
Does she?
Yeah.
Yeah, very near the Marshall White Center, where she's like an urban farmer and a co-op coordinator.
Growth microgreens. Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff, and she's gonna take it up in a brick and mortar setting down here.
Awesome.
Well, kudos on your award and,
Oh, thank you.
and great job on the good work you do. It's, you know, you did create a lot of, synergy and great work down there. I do have a question because I don't know exactly how it works, how you partner with the brick and mortars all the time. I mean, do you have a lot of communication with the brick and mortar owners and
Yeah.
store and
So we've built a list that we've got to do some cleaning on, but we have a list of to email them directly, and we also spend a fair amount of time walking up and down 25th Street. Our office is right over at 2650 Washington
Yeah.
Boulevard, yeah, we have direct communication. We also host quarterly town hall business meetings. We just hosted one a couple weeks ago, and Mayor Nadowski was there and spoke directly to several business owners. They were able to ask him questions. And so we really see ourselves as helping to bridge the gap, if there is one, between communication to the city and the business owners as best we can. I also know that there was a particular issue with the snow removal, and
that goes to my next question
yeah.
to you. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I was kind of getting at is there talk or is there a way that you can help to facilitate? You know, there wasn't a lot of, I wouldn't call them serious complaints. I mean, it's just a nuisance every year. You
Mhm.
know, snow happens and UDOT plows it over the side and store owners plow it over to the curb and anyway, it makes getting around for especially disabled people really difficult. And you know, it's just been a thought in my mind for years and years that we ought to be able to organize some way to that the business owners that do have the responsibility to keep the sidewalks clear, if they kind of came together and hired a service to maybe eliminate the snow instead of just pile it higher.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to facilitate that for them. It's a matter of resources, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And one thing I will say is we actually just recently had a grant from the Utah Main Streets program, and we hired a service to come and power wash the 100 and 200 block in front of the businesses on 25th Street. I don't know if you noticed a difference there. If you saw the before and after immediately, it's pretty wild. Some of the gum that was removed. But we had a specific grant that allowed us to do that. If I had the resources available, I would happily facilitate that specifically for the downtown to help take care of that. What I think we could do, we as an organization could do better is we are going through our communications list and working to make sure that we have those avenues in place and that those people recognize the faces of our staff. But that'll just take some time, and some of those things
Yeah.
preceded me. So
I would imagine it would be you know, certainly would be a fee to the property owner or business owner, whatever it would be. But boy, were I located there, I'd pay it because I think it'd be a valuable thing to just create better access to my business. It improves the face of the building of the business. Just does a lot of good things, and it just seems to be an area that we have not done much with for a long time.
mhm.
But you know, you
Well,
guys
and
you guys are the people kind of that are the face of it all. And
yeah, and you know, I would say that the city's doing a great job, but they see 25th Street as another street, right? Whereas we, as an organization, we see that as the crown jewel of what the city has, like the best asset that we have, and the face of the city, and that was part of the reason you know, we thought it was part of our responsibility with the amount of foot traffic that we help contribute down there to do something to help clean it up and add some beautification. But it's really kind of a matter of resources. So yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions? I was curious, Thomas. I know that you've been working on this, as you said, to put up the banners for 9 Rails. Because I know I've talked to a few businesses that would love to see some more of that traffic come up. And I think we kind of talked about this maybe last year about crossing Washington might be a challenge. Have you made any progress on that, or what are you?
Yeah, we've talked some with the Monarch, and so we realistically, with the resources that we currently have right now, we look at the mission and say, what can we do with this? And I think that it's wisest for us as an organization right now to focus on those three core events and then kind of work out from there. And really look for ways that we can partner with other places and areas that we can see where there's already foot traffic. I mentioned Christmas Village, right? Like we know the foot traffic's there, so how do we get them to move and stay longer and spend? It's a similar kind of concept with the Monarchs. So we've had meetings with them, but right now it's kind of where we as an organization are happy to help promote them. We can do the simple things that we can do, and then just make recommendations on things that we think will help them. I think they've got some incredible assets up there with the Dumkey Plaza and the Avenue right there that they can do some things with. But for us, it's kind of we're focusing on the core right now.
Great. Well, thanks so much again for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Kip, next we'll invite Coralie Jensen, our Deputy Comptroller, to talk with us about the fiscal year 2022 to 23 grants.
Okay. All right, so really quick, I'll just go through our annual grant report. This report covers all grants in the city, not just our federal ones that our auditors look at. The grants are spread throughout the city through various departments and divisions, and then most of the financial management of these grants is done in our office by Dean Austin. He's an amazing accountant that handles and tracks all of these. So last year we expended 7.78 million in grants, and that is not including our HUD grants, because I know the HUD grants get covered in a separate work session usually. Over questions, please stop me, ask. I'm happy to answer. So our Department of Homeland Security, usually the funding goes towards our Real-Time Crime Center. The U.S. Department of Transportation, those mainly comprise of our airport grants. And then our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services those funds were used for projects along the Ogden and Weber River. And so was the National Park Services. The Department of Justice, those go to fund various police and legal programs. And then the Office of the President, that is funding for our Strike Force program. And then the Department of Treasury, those are the ARPA funds that have been committed, and we should start seeing spending in this next fiscal year. The U.S. Department of Commerce, those were grants received through the state of Utah that came down from the federal government that were used for broadband and internet. And then our state of Utah Division of Wildlife, those funds were used for projects along the river. And then just the state of Utah grants, that encompasses art grants, the airport legislature funding that we received, and then some police grants as well. And then our county grants usually are just the ramp grants, and our other outside grants, those are our McKay Foundation grants, as well as donations that we've received for like the Dumkey Plaza and everything. I did pull a history for some of our new council members to see the number of grants that we've received over the last 10 years. Back in 2014, we received 57 grants, and it was about 2.6 million last year. So in 2022 and 2021, those were CARES and ARPA funding throughout the city. So that's why those amounts are so high, as well as the state airport funding that we received in 2022. And again, these amounts don't include any of the HUD grants that we receive as well. So I know it's a very quick, broad overview. Are there any questions on any specific grants?
Chair, ARPA and CARES.
So CARES, I used to know the name of it. ARPA is American Rescue Plan Act.
Was that
And-
part of the COVID
Yes,
stuff?
CARES
Okay.
was a COVID action. It was, I can't remember it.
So both COVID related.
Both COVID related, yes.
Okay, and those aren't coming back anytime.
So the CARES aren't, or the CARES won't, and then the ARPA has been committed for various projects. And that is, again, one-time funding, that was entitlement funding based on, statistics in the city.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
So many acronyms.
I just want to say kudos. I only manage one grant and it is a pain in the, and
Yes,
so,
Federal grants.
thank you so much. Was it Dean?
Dean
Yeah.
Austin, yeah, I will pass along your thanks. to
Because
him.
that is amazing, managing 87 grants or whatever we
Yeah, a
just
lot.
did. So,
Yep,
and just one other point, it takes just as much to manage the $5,000 grant as it does the $500,000. And so thank you and kudos to going after those bigger ones.
I will pass that along to him. So
Just going to ask, was this the grants related to our homeland or homeless advocates, or that it's included in the
Um,
Department of Justice? Or
so the homeless advocates, those are included in the other outside grants. Those grants that we received from McKay-D Foundation. And then we also get a homeless mitigation grant, which helps fund some firefighters and police officers. That is from the state of Utah. So
and is with that, are there, or I assume we're looking at future grant opportunities to continue those programs, or can you give an update on that?
I know that Kevin Cottrell with the police department has been seeking out those other funding opportunities. As far as specifically for the homeless advocates, I'm not aware. I don't know if administration knows, but we can find out and definitely get back to your staff on the exact update on that grant.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, up next, I'll invite Barton Brierley, our planning manager, to talk about the proposed partial street vacation at Cahoon Street between F and G Avenues. Welcome.
Thank you. So we received a Cahoon Street. There we go. So this is in West Ogden. It's about 770 West Cahoon Street. It's an area that's zoned single family. It's next to the railroad tracks. And it's part of an original plat in that area. But it's part of the street that was never actually constructed as a street. So the petitioner owns property on both sides, clear down to 24th Street. They would like to vacate the street so that they could consolidate all their property into a larger tract for development. The property is currently zoned single-family residential. They have an idea of requesting a zone change and doing some sort of mixed-use development on the property. This is just a concept plan of what it might look like. This is concept of some of the types of buildings they might be looking at doing at the property, you know, if it was vacated and if there was a zone change. This is the existing conditions. As you can see, it's just open land. There's no actual street where the street right of way is. There is a railroad spur on the property, and the existing right of way ends at the railroad spur. The Cahoon Street did originally extend past the spur to the next street. So when we looked at this request, what jumped out at us is the plans for realigning the I-15 24th Street interchange. This is something that the city's wanted for a while, to be able to get a full interchange at 24th Street. And we've been working with UDOT. There's been several changes, some proposed, several alignments proposed, several ideas. UDOT's getting closer to what they think it might look like in there. So it's not gonna look like it shows on this property. But it does look very positive that there will be an interchange, a full interchange there with the reconfiguration of that. That has caused us to relook at a lot of things in this area, relook at land use. You'll have properties that are suddenly near an interchange that weren't. You'll have different access points. There'll be accesses that are cut off, accesses are added. And the big thing is utilities. This is kind of the far end of town for like our water system. And so trying to make sure that there's good water supply in that area is a challenge. And so we'll be reevaluating, do we put a trunk line in there? Do we do it along the railroad? Where do we do it? How we do sewer, how we do storm drain? All those things are things that we need to evaluate as part of the interchange. And we think that it may be that we will need to put a water line through the area to along Cahoon Street, a major water line in that area. It's not decided yet, not for sure, but it is a possibility that we may need to do that water line in that.
Just explain the little map up in the right-hand corner. I'm not sure what the red indicator means.
Yes.
Compared to the circle.
Yes, so this is the interchange, and this would be where the property is.
Okay. Mhm.
So it's not directly adjacent to it, but if we need to get a water line in this area under the freeway or serve this area, then this is a possible route for that water line in that area.
Do we know what other possible routes there may be, if it might go down separate street, or, I mean, this is probably the most likely route, it sounds like, but are there other routes?
There could, yeah, I mean, we'll be evaluating other routes too, might be any of the existing streets along the railroad tracks. This seems reasonably likely route, but it's not definite that we would select that, so.
If there was already buildings there, then would that be the location for the water line?
That would be something we'd have to look at. We might have to, it's possible that we would look at removing buildings. We may have to acquire some buildings along this water line route to locate it there.
I guess I'm just curious because, I mean, there's a lot of other things that are around that area.
Mhm.
So we haven't prevented other things from being built around there. So, I'm just wondering about the argument of not allowing things to be built on this property right now because of the potential in the future when there are other buildings already around.
I think the main thing is this is our property.
Mhm.
It's not private property that
Right.
we're not preventing a private property owner from developing their private property. This is about,
So they could build on either side of it now without
yes,
going.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
I could probably answer some of these
Please.
questions. I was hiding in the back.
Sure. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes,
or-
I'm Justin Anderson. I'm now the Public Services Director, formerly the city engineer, and I've done a lot of work on our water system and other utilities.
Yeah, awesome. We appreciate it.
So this is a route, as you're familiar with the track line, we've extended a 24-inch water line into track line. D Avenue is a piece of property that once the city owned, which is really adjacent to this, and it was vacated years ago, and now we are looking to get that back and extend D Avenue
Mhm.
and repurchase that. We are connecting a 24-inch water line up D Avenue, and we have to get it all the way over to the west side of I-15 and 24th Street. So this definitely is a potential alignment, and we are not talking like a 8-inch water line, we are talking a 24-inch
Right.
water line. So,
That's helpful. Thank you.
yeah.
Do we have whatever UDOT is proposing for a 24th Street interchange layout? And the last one I saw was years and years ago.
Yeah, so they've actually are just going back and redoing an environmental document. They had done one, and in dealing with the railroad in the area, they have determined that it became too expensive to continue to try to replace all the rail lines that would be affected, and so they're doing a new EA and are in that process right now.
So the one that kind of took over, changed to repurposed Pennsylvania and all that's gone away. They're
Not completely. So they're looking at where they need to potentially look to have a completely new interchange design. But as far as utilizing Pennsylvania and Midland, I think all that is still being looked at.
Okay, thanks.
So I do know, we have had quite a few discussions with the proponents on this, the petitioners on this. You know, one thing they asked about is, could they do a utility easement to the north that would allow them to vacate the property and consolidate it? And we've discussed that with them. Again, we just think it's it's premature to be able to say, yes, that would be okay. There's technical issues anytime you do a curve in a water line. There's a lot of force in a 24-inch water line, and you got to address all that. So it's not as simple as just going, 90-degree curves on a water line. So we do not support that proposal at this time.
Well, and where we own the property right now, if we vacate it and still keep an easement, but we go put a water line in there, we very well might have to be turning around and paying construction easements and everything else to be able to, or a right to enter and construct if we have to grade out for the water line or other things like that. Where right now we own the width and we would not need to.
Isn't one of the reasons, one of the findings of fact, if you will, of granting a vacation that there isn't a public purpose for the land? I know the
Yes.
planning commission has defined that. I don't know if that binds us to that same degree, but it seems reasonable. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, that is one of the criteria. Would the public interest be affected in here? And we feel that vacating it would affect the public interest on it. And so I think that if the council were to approve it, that you would have to find that it would not conflict with the public interest.
I guess that just to make sure that I'm 100% clear, and maybe, I don't know, we do have a legal mind in the room, but is that a requirement for the council to find, or is it it's just a good idea?
I believe it's in the ordinance, so I believe you would have to do findings to show that criteria.
Because we don't normally have to show findings, but like I said, I think it's absolutely a good idea. It seems pretty important in this case, but I just wanted to make sure that I fully understood.
So there's a couple other comments or questions. Go ahead and then Sean next.
Yeah, so my question is, this has already been before the planning commission,
Yes,
and what has the result been? Because I've studied this out already, so.
yes, the planning commission is recommending by a 9-0 vote that you not approve the vacation.
And their purpose for declining that?
They felt that it was conflicting with the public interest, that there would be this potential for the water line, that there was a possibility of the public being damaged by vacating it.
So is it strictly the water line that's causing the problem? Because I like the project. But I'm just trying to wrap my mind around why that is a problem.
That I'd say is 90% of, probably 95% of the reason. If we were, and this might be something 2 years from now, if we planned it out and we can say with some confidence that it isn't, we might come back. But that is the number one reason. There may be some other reasons. We may need construction, easements. We may need, we may end up configuring access in that area and need there, but the water lines say 95%.
Yeah, depending on the 24th Street interchange and how things redevelop, and also the parcel of property to the west of this, yeah, that might change, especially with D Avenue connecting all the way through from 24th Street down to Exchange. So there, that all could be reconfigured.
Did you say an estimated timeline on the new configuration?
So I can tell you this, we've been working with the railroad crossing and we have approval to cross the railroad at D Avenue now. We are actually, working with them on getting approval to go underneath them with our utilities. And so that process is not necessarily a quick process, but it is in process and we have funding lined up to connect D Avenue. And so I believe within the next 2 to 3 years that will be built.
Did you have a comment or question, Councilmember White?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and then I guess it's more of a comment. Then it all relies on the fact that we would have to change the zoning there as well. And that's not a given either, correct?
That's correct. The West Ogden Community Plan does include a possible mixed-use zoning in that area, so it's not, the idea isn't totally out of the ballpark that we would entertain a zone change in that area, but that is still a process that would need to be gone through.
Any other questions or comments?
No, but just keep working on that 24th Street interchange.
Steve?
Get it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just to add some clarification, the code, I can just read it really quick. It's a sentence. It says the council may approve the proposed vacation if it finds that good cause exists for the vacation and neither the public interest nor any person will be materially injured by the vacation. And you'll have to hold a public hearing, to make that finding. And, that's one of the reasons, one of the questions I guess we had as staff was, we're kind of tentatively thinking the 20th of February to have the public hearing, if that works for council. You could either deny the request after holding the public hearing or ask that an ordinance be written, if you'd like to approve the vacation request, and we can bring it back to another meeting after the 20th, if that's the date that you decide.
I'm thinking, are the petitioners here in the workroom? Does anybody have questions for the petitioners before the public hearing?
I would like to hear from the petitioners.
What questions do you have? For
I
them?
don't have any questions. I just like to know their motivation and what their plan is.
Sure,
and-
that sounds like a great question. Come on up if you'd like to. Welcome. You can just state your name for the record.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking the question. So I'll be brief. I don't want to keep anyone longer. So Tyler and Teresa, can you raise your hands? So they're the owners of the property. They're here. Steve and I are helping them develop their property. So increase the value for them. And we have a pretty good project that aligns with the future of what Ogden is trying to do here. So we just wanted to, with this short time, we'll just explain a little bit of our portion of the picture. And we don't have the full picture, right? So
And
this
do
is
you
just part of
represent a company?
so we're the McCleary company, but really we're representing them. This is their development. They're asking for the street vacation. So cool. So Cahoon Street vacation, let's see here. There we go. So executive summary. If you don't take anything else away from this, we'll be super quick. The material value of Cahoon Street is the potential for utility access, which was covered. West of Cahoon Street is not feasible to be a future road. That could be the material value of that portion, right? It could be a road. But because there's railroads, the right-of-way isn't necessary. The western portions of Cahoon Street have already been vacated. I'll go over which portions have been vacated already. We're offering a municipal utility easement to prevent the material injury to the city, as we go further into this, the cost to Ogden City to eminent domain what's west of us will be, this is just based off of the tax assessment value. We know that properties are worth more than that. So there is a potential for creating a material injury to taxpayers for buying all those properties. There's other options besides 24th Street. We don't know exactly what those are. We asked, but we don't know what they are. The purpose of this is redeveloping, going back to your Ogden, downtown alliance, the small business. We're looking to help improve this area and provide small businesses and residents an area, new property for them. And then property taxes. So that's a huge benefit for you guys. So we'll go super quick through this. You already know where it's located. There's the potential development concept. This is going to change.
And can I just ask you about the $60,000? Is that the whole tax value or just the value for Ogden
That's
City?
per unit per year.
$60,000 per unit.
Yeah, I've got an example. I'll zip
I just-
through this and go for it. So there's a street. You guys already know this. We can't build on a street, so that would affect us. We've got 24 units potentially that could go there. The impact is 9 units with adding in, parking, setbacks, all these things, right? We had to do a alleyway vacation with our neighbors, the church next door. They were great to work with. We closed that, and the next portion is the street vacation. The church owned the portion north of there that was part of Cahoon Street. That has been vacated to them. That's point C there. Excuse me. Point B is west of the tracks. So if you're looking at this slide, west of the tracks, Cash Commodities, that was Cahoon Street in the original dedication to Ogden City. It's been vacated. On the east side of the tracks where we are, that little itty bitty portion of Cahoon Street has been vacated to the Church of God Ebenezer. So it was already vacated. Just something to consider. Is this little sliver that's there developable per code? Yes, you have a buildable envelope of at least 1,100 square feet. But if you look at that, how would you build a house with? I put the setbacks in there. That white area is the buildable envelope per the setbacks, and you could build a triangular house in that area. Here's the concept. The basic thing is there's commercial on the bottom floor. There's residential on the top 2 floors. They're kind of like townhomes, but there's a commercial element to it. It'll be a tax revenue source for the city. The cool part about this is you're creating affordable housing on top of commercial space. So your small business owners can own where they live and run business out of the ground floor. Here's some examples. This is in Draper, by the way, this product that we're looking at. These are actual examples in Draper of the types of businesses that are there. Here's pictures of them. I love this because if you look at the bottom, there's the little Instagram lady. She's got they're real people. They have businesses. They run their livelihood out of where they live. That's what we're trying to bring to 24th Street. So here's those numbers that I was telling you about. I compared, so Draper property taxes per unit, and I did some analysis of what it would look like similar in 24th Street. So it would be 2,500 per unit. There's 24 units, 60,000 per year. So that's a benefit to Ogden City, and that's an annual revenue that we would be producing with this project being approved. Cost eminent domain. Yes, you've got 150 feet. I don't have the exact number. I'm going off Google Earth here, Google Maps. You've got about 1,040 to go. That goes through those 3 businesses along the tracks. Here's an estimate of what those cost based off of the tax assessed value. So the church's property, 24,000. Break Time Bob's, 700,000. Mandy's Pet Chalet. I believe that would be a material injury for having to eminent domain those. we know that the actual values of the properties will be more than this. Okay, so let's talk about the street itself. It was given to Ogden City in a plat dedication. It cannot, we cover this in the planning commission. It cannot count as surplus to be sold. So if the city were to give it up, it would be worth $0. So the material value is 0 as a street. What we're proposing is an MUE to facilitate the potential issue of the injury for the water line. And there's already utilities going through the tracks. There's a sewer line there. There's a storm drain line there. We are one of the potential options. There's, you could go through 24th Street. There's, I believe 25th Street is another option. So yes, you could go through this one, Cahoon Street, if you needed to. We're proposing utility easement. We talked to Excel Engineering, and they confirmed that you can turn. We were told it was a 16-inch pipe, 24-inch. Maybe these numbers aren't valid, but it's a pressurized water line. You can turn pressurized water lines. We have pressurized water lines in our buildings, in our, you take a shower, you do the water. You can turn pressurized water lines. This is a 45-degree angle. From Excel Engineering, they told us you can turn that at least 45-degree angle. It'll be fine. This is our proposed, like it's a mock on a map, right, of where it could go. We understand that the water from the sewer needs to be 20 feet away. So we're willing to work with wherever that needs to go to make that possible. So to be clear, no to Cahoon Street vacation means no to property taxes annually. Yes to running utilities through Cahoon Street means yes to eminent domains. Yes to vacating Cahoon Street means yes, you get the property taxes annually. Yes, Cahoon Street vacation. Yes to an MUE, and we help you not have the material loss of the utility line. Yes to vacating. Yes to more families and small businesses who are the most impacted demographic right now. That's helping the middle class. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Any questions or comments from council? Mm-hmm.
Just have a question for Justin or staff. You mentioned that there's supposed to be a 24-inch water line. And my question is, they're proposing a 16-inch water line.
We were just told it would be 16-inch in the planning commission.
Oh.
24-inch.
I was gonna say, you could say the T.
Yeah. So that's what I put in the slide. I don't know how big it needs to be.
Yeah, so it's a 24-inch down at the exchange, off of Exchange Road at D Avenue. And we have proposed to the Union Pacific Railroad that will be going under those tracks right there that Patriot Rail uses on D Avenue as a 24-inch water line. We have a 20-inch water line just on the west side of I-15, and so we will connect it over with the 24-inch line.
And the purpose is to supply water over to that side, passing underneath the track. Is that? Am I
Yeah,
understanding
so essentially, one of the main purposes is zone 9 up at the airport. Right now, there is no storage at the airport. And so the plan is to connect it out so then we can boost it up to the airport, that then we can use our 23rd Street reservoirs as our storage for that zone. And also to have that connection all the way to the west side of I-15.
And so I'm sorry, Justin, I'm gonna have to dig a little bit deeper so my understanding is that it needs to be a 24-inch water line, just mostly for the potential use of the airport.
Correct.
Okay. And so I don't know what that does to your project or not. It kind of complicates things, obviously, but this is a neat project. I think it's good, but it got a couple tough obstacles.
Yeah. So that's our perspective. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So it sounds like if we don't have any more discussion, we just need to give direction to Steve about it being on the agenda for February 20th.
Just to be clear, the planning commission saw all of this, right? That's okay.
No, they did not.
Oh, excuse me, just one second. So I did hear, I guess in leadership, we heard that maybe they hadn't heard about the alternate agreement.
In the planning commission meeting, we actually did.
Oh, you were there, Dave.
Yeah,
Okay,
we did
fantastic.
understand that there was a utility easement that was being offered near the railroad tracks. There were some questions around a number of things, but mostly, vacating Cahoon Street wasn't gonna displace any residents. It wasn't gonna be a personal problem for anybody. But vacating it gave the city it resulted in the loss of an opportunity that might be needed for the city to use that street for utility easement, and thereby saving expense to the taxpayers as a whole and having to reroute this. Additionally, there was question about proximity of water line to sewer lines, that also hadn't been addressed in that, and I don't know that it was here this evening, but that was a concern, and we understood that that was a possible prohibiting factor.
Thank you.
And
Firsthand
the
witness.
petitioner is correct. We did not see all of the pros and cons that were listed in his particular slideshow this evening. We did like the project. We thought it was a nice development for West 24th Street. But there was the impediment of potential future need for utility access.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So since you were there and a voting planning commission member at the time, did you see anything tonight that would have changed your mind as a planning commissioner?
Just though, Justin Anderson spoke a little bit about the possibility of rerouting the water line. I forget the letter of the street. Is it D?
Yeah.
If there's another alternative to be explored, then, that opens a different line of consideration. But the city was, when we heard it, the city was holding open the possibility that Cahoon is the route for a future water line.
Well, 9-0 was a pretty strong vote. So, and that's kind of what was listed by the planning commission. So I just didn't know if anything new would have maybe changed that. I know your crystal ball broke too, but.
So Madam Chair, may I ask one other question?
Please.
The intent now is that we'll review this topic again at a future meeting. Is that
It'll go on the public meeting for February 20th.
with with city council?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and Chair, if it's okay, I'll just
Please.
go through some of the procedure. So I appreciate having another planner in our office because Steve took pretty much everything I was going to say earlier. So that's awesome. So thanks. But yeah, as far as procedure goes, so we are required to hold a public hearing. So it will go on a future meeting. If it is the 20th, if you all agree to that, then that'll be the day. We'll get that noticed up. And there'll be an opportunity for public comment. There'll be these presentations again. There'll be an opportunity for the petitioners to speak again. And if you all don't give us direction to work with legal to get an ordinance drafted tonight, and you want to just move ahead, your options on that meeting on the 20th will be to uphold the planning commission's recommendation of denial, which is to deny, or give direction to staff to create that ordinance. If you hear something at that meeting and it changes your mind or you want to think about it more, then you can table that. You can give us direction to create that ordinance. That would give you the opportunity to actually consider approving it. So right now, as it stands, because the planning commission did not recommend approval, we don't have that ordinance. So on the 20th, you wouldn't be able to approve it. So it would be upholding the planning commission recommendation or directing us to write that ordinance. But you'll have another opportunity in a couple of weeks if you give us that direction, and we'll get that noticed and you'll be able to hear it again. And if you hear something that changes your mind, you'll be able to have another opportunity after that.
And just for clarification for the public hearing, another notice to the people living around that area will go out too. So
Yep.
we might get more feedback from people in the community.
Madam Chair, I have another question for you,
Okay,
unless you
sure.
do. You all right, Marcia?
Yep, go.
Okay,
You're good.
so my question is, Is in the interim between now and the 20th, is there a possibility that the petitioners can work with the city on another potential plan? Or or are we just where we're at right today?
Yeah,
The other potential is, the other question I have, well, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think, this is just the vacation right now. So as Barton mentioned, I mean, there's a rezone. You all won't see a site plan or a subdivision or anything if this gets approved the way that they want and the rezone gets approved, that'll be the last time you see it. So the planning commission or even just staff will deal with kind of the final actual design and that. So right now it's just a vacation petition. So I suppose if there is an agreement, you know, the staff could, you know, give you the details of that, and that might change your mind. But between now and then, this kind of is where we're at as far as the petition.
Can I
Last
just ask
question.
can I just ask one more
Please.
clarifying piece on that? Since that's all we're deciding on in this particular action, we aren't guaranteed in any way that what they've shown us would be built or the property would
Correct.
be used in any way like it's
Yep.
been said.
And that's why I
That's the other
mentioned,
thing to
yeah,
consider is it only has to do with the vacation versus the whole project as you've just seen it.
there are multiple steps. So you're sort of on step one. Step two would be the rezone, and then step three would be the actual development, which you would not see because that's not a legislative decision.
And Madam Chair, my last question is, we talked about the 24th Street property, it's 24th Street Viaduct, not the Viaduct, the interchange. Does that affect this property at all? Is that something we want to hold the property for with staff? I just don't know.
As far as right away for that, it's
It's too far away.
It's too far away, but it's all the other things that, you know, it could be a storm drain line, could be a water line, could be a sewer line. Things
Do you
like
have a question or comment?
Yeah, and I just had a quick question around the tax piece of it and the numbers. It just seems high. That $60,000 seems high. Is that the city's portion or is that the entire portion?
I don't know, because we didn't generate
really,
that
yeah.
number, so.
That'd be a
Yeah.
question I'd like to answer before.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you on the microphone from there. Maybe you all could follow up later in the conversation. It'd be perfect. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
So leadership, you're okay if we proceed with those two options without creating an ordinance at this time?
I think that makes the most sense.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. And Joe's already here. Thanks so much, Joe, for stepping up. We have Joe Simpson, our Deputy Planning Manager. He's going to talk with us about a proposed rezone at 218 Chester Street.
That's right. It's good to be with you, council members.
I
So
like your purple.
thank you. I
Yeah.
bleed purple. What can I
Mhm.
say? I can't get rid of it. But yeah, we're looking at going from a rezone from a single family zone R16 to our new R2S zoning. And this is at 218 Chester Street, which is just east of Wall Avenue, north of 9th Street, to give you an idea. And this location map kind of outlines that. The property that's being petitioned, again, R16 zone, it's located in the Lynn Community Plan and is just over 2 acres of property, so it's decent size, but is surrounded by single family and developed residential developments. Recently, a townhome project was developed to the adjacent west of the property. The one key thing, just note with the proposed use, though that would come later, is look at keeping an existing single-family home that's on the property and then developing townhomes. And under the new R2S zoning, those are required to be platted so they could have individual ownership. Plat just kind of shows
You
the
said
out.
so they could have or so they have to have?
They have to have individual ownership, but they could be owned all the units by the same individual. So they have to be platted where each unit has its own tax ID and purchased separately. And that is the requirement of the code. An interesting thing to point out is this property, as mentioned, it is true infill is really what we're looking at. It is totally and completely surrounded by development. It has historically appears to have obtained access from a 40-foot strip of property that comes off of 9th Street. And this property right now is part of the recently developed townhome property that's just west of this property. Looking at county records, it's not shown in the legal description of how this single family home that's on the property now has been accessed. More than likely, it's a prescriptive easement or easement by necessity, but that is kind of how it's functioning now. So this property is sole access is off of 9th Street off that adjacent property. This kind of gives a layout that where the indication marker is, so the 218 Chester, that's where the existing single family home is, and that would be remaining with the development. And then you can see the footing and being poured in the recent development, those townhomes to the adjacent west. Here's a concept plan to kind of see how that would lay out. You can see on, let me turn a laser pointer. This is what is Chester Street. It's not really Chester Street, but is an easement to access the property off of 9th Street. Property would be accessed here, retain the existing single family home, and then develop townhomes with the project. This is nothing reviewed because it's not zoned to allow this right now, so that would be coming, but just concept that would be looked at if the property were to be rezoned. All right, and then just some building elevation plans, typical townhome with attached garages. One thing, again, to point out, and I think what the petitioner was really excited about in the this new R2S code, you may recall that this code was recently developed and was developed for the old Grandview Elementary site off Jackson and like 39th, I believe. And the concern behind that was it had an R3 zoning and how that would allow potential larger multifamily. And there became this big discussion of how do we encourage properties to be developed to have owner occupation or to be owner occupied. And that's where this zoning developed out, the R2S zoning, where it has the ability to develop single family homes on small lots, 2,500 square foot lots, small, which is very small. And also doing a townhome development, which typically are done under a group dwelling type development. So again, the petitioner was very excited about that and was excited to present that, and that is the intent, is to be able to subdivide those individual units out. Looking at edging and surrounding, we do have built into the group dwelling code the ability to provide some buffering and screening from the adjacent properties. That development code requires screening, fencing, setbacks from property lines to ensure that that space is respected between the established development and the new development. Also to point out, we look at this type of zoning when we're trying to create transition between different types of uses. And it's a really interesting situation because fairly close to the west, you have one of our largest corridors in the whole city, Wall Avenue, and then just off of that, stepping down to this multifamily, and from multifamily to single family. And this really we see as just kind of a gradient between that multifamily and single family, and providing that good transition between different uses zoning. The proposal, though the property consists of 2 parcels, they the zoning boundary would follow all the property lines, so there's no risk of creating split zoning in this petition. It also will provide some opportunity to develop really an isolated property. We have a lot of these in the city and they're very challenging to develop, primarily just getting access to them and having to run utilities to them. And it's hard to make them economically viable with just a single family home when you have to run a lot of utilities and a lot of access. So one of the things that I love with our group dwelling code is it does require, pedestrian connections to be implemented, gathering areas, open space areas. And so all of that would be able to provide connection inside the development, but also be able to tie into access to the public out on 9th Street. Lynn Community Plan, boy, it's an old plan. I'm so glad we're updating our general plan. It's desperately needed. That's a long time ago, but basically just wanted to show the property's just above the red star here, but it had an R2 zoning, and in 2001 there was this large major downzoning that occurred citywide, where swaths of land were downzoned to single family. So there's not a ton of insight that to glean from the community plan, but the provisions that we have and criteria from the general plan as we look at not isolating these properties, opening this property up to be able to have access to the public, and also creating a transition between uses. We fill with those criteria, and the commission felt that could be approved. And so there was a recommendation of approval of the rezone.
Go ahead.
Joe, that R4 property that's both sides of 9th Street, just east of Wall, when was that rezoned? Do you know? Do you recall?
It's old. I know it was on the 60s zoning map, so I believe.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, it's a very old zone. Yes.
Okay, I just see this is in a sea of R16. And,
That's
which,
my term.
yeah. But well, I probably got it from you. So, and you got to consider this is an upzone, even though it's not much of an upzone, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it does achieve some objectives that we've been shooting for. But can you maybe address when there's so much single family around, it does affect that. Can you talk to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key things that I would point out, I'm sounding like Greg Keys, but there are some key points, is really just looking at this existing situation of the property. Like you mentioned and indicate, we do have this multifamily. The multifamily project, it could be, there's no requirement that those be platted individually. That could be, in essence, could have
Yeah.
been a large apartment that could be developed on that. In fact, there are apartments developing close to the
Well,
property.
that our four
Our
stuff is-
four,
there's a lot
yeah.
of pretty. I think
And
they're
then
4-story.
commercial, and even as ridiculous it is, there's an M1 zone up there. Oh my goodness, what's that?
I
doing
noticed
there?
that.
Yeah, what is it doing?
Yeah, so again, you've got this, I would say the way you've got to look at it is you've an interesting setting where you have this heavy commercial corridor of Wall Avenue. I mean, we've just got Home Depot just to the south of this, a lot of big box, a lot of heavy traffic, and then pulling in onto 9th Street, multifamily to single family. And multifamily has historically been how we've transitioned those different types of uses. Though I would agree that this property, there's some concern I would have of going R3, where we're creating more of this peninsula kind of R3 in the single family. And I think that's where the beauty of this new R2S zone that we have in place is it really provides that missing zone between different uses, single family and the multifamily use, to provide this transition. And so that would be, you know, our analysis and how I would address your comment or question.
Can I ask one more question, follow up to that? Looking at the vote of the planning commission, it was it's like 8-1.
Mhm.
Commissioner Blaisdell, which I have a lot of respect for, as she is one of the most seasoned planning
Mhm.
commissioners. It kind of gives a little blurb of why she voted no, but can you maybe add on to that a little bit?
I do. I recall her statement. I think her concern was just really the density of the R2S zone. And that
Oh.
was really her
She didn't
comment.
think it fit there very well then, huh?
Yeah, that was she had a hard time getting around that. I
Okay,
think.
thank you.
As a quick follow-up to that density piece, what about I can't remember, well, I don't know why I'd even think that I would remember but do we have open space requirements in the R2S zone as well? So that, I mean, that looked pretty dense. Is there, design standard?
There is, and it's actually built into the group dwelling. So when you go that route in the group dwelling, there are percentages that have to be met depending on whether it fall under a different type of, if it's smaller than an acre, it's a small lot or a small neighborhood or small group dwelling, small lot group dwelling, and then bigger than acre is neighborhood, and neighborhood has more. This is because it's more than 2 acres, so there would be open space and gathering space and amenity space that would have to occur with a group dwelling development. It could, and the petitioner may change their mind, say, I want to do single family lots at the 2,500 lot, and that could be another option that could be explored, or a mix of the two. I know the intent is to try and keep the existing single family home on the property and develop with that, so. There's lots of options with the R2S zoning, but the most dense it could be is the single or the townhomes.
It just didn't look like that in that drawing. That was
Yeah,
not a concern.
and again, it would have to meet all that, and we'd analyze that.
Chair, one other question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
with the R2S zone, I mean, that's new to me. I mean, that's, and what is the height limitation
There, it's
compared to what, to the R16?
It's exactly the same.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Question for you, Councilman Myers?
Yeah, thank you. Well done. This is for a guy that doesn't understand a lot of zoning and anything else. That looks perfect, Joe, and I like it really well. I just, my question is, you mentioned this for home ownership, and that is awesome. Is there any type of a covenant that requires that they continue to be privately owned and lived in, or in some future day, could they become rental property?
Yeah, I know there's, and I'm not an attorney, and we have more attorneys that could probably weigh in this, but my understanding is due to some fair housing laws, we do not have that ability to say that the owner of that property has to live there as their primary residence.
For a period of time, is that,
No.
they've done that, some developments, like where the old Lewis School was, there was a
Yeah,
5-year.
those are part of different grant programs and community development, but yeah, as for a private development like this, the only requirement is that it has to be individually platted. So they can't just have it all be one piece of property and I own all of the units. Each unit has to be platted separately for ownership.
It's just the same as like a single family,
Right.
and it would be right around it.
Yep.
These could all be rentals and we wouldn't know.
Yep.
I know what it is, but I gotta ask the question because
Yeah,
my
no,
heart's
no.
in
I love
private
it.
home
Yeah.
ownership, so.
I can talk about this all day long. Keep them coming.
But I do
Somebody
have,
will own them, but it doesn't have to, we have no.
but I do
control
have one
over
other
it.
comment, Madam
Mhm.
Chair. This is La Tierra Santa for me, which is kind of the Holy Land, because I grew up right there. And I see some of the petitioners here, and I know, Marcia, you have a question, but I would still like to hear from the petitioners. I like this project a lot, but I would like to hear their perspective, so.
Sure, go ahead.
No, and my only comment back is that at least by individually platting them, then there's more of a potential of them being home ownership.
Great, you have a question for the petitioner?
I just would like to hear from their perspective, their.
Sure. Come on up. Either way,
Either way.
whatever works best for you, just, please state your name for the record.
Thank you. And my name's Gary Cannon. Rick Southwick and myself are doing the entitlement work on this. I live in Riverton, Utah, not Riverdale, which is about an hour and a half drive from here. And I am on the planning commission in Riverton as well. So this is, I know what questions you guys are curious about. I want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. I guess the biggest compliment we had that one of the commissioners in our first meeting used the word historic. And I have never, in my development career, I've never had a commissioner or anyone address a project as historic to a community. We're very proud of that fact. Want to just touch on a couple things really quickly. It might answer some questions for you, may open up some others. I love the verbiage in here where it said it can be. This is not going to be, it can be ownership. It can't, this will be owned. Both Rick and myself have been in the real estate business for 40 years independently of each other. We are all about home ownership. The property directly to the west, the townhomes that were recently done, those are rentals. And our intent in no way, shape, or form is to do rentals. We want to provide ownership. That's kind of our thrust right now in taking this through. We also, I don't know the legalities of it. I have seen it done. And to answer your question, I worry, but the worst thing we could do is put a product out there. Oh, I got to take a step back real quick. This has a potential of getting up to 40 units on this property based on this current zoning. That is not our intent. That's where I don't want to say considerably less than 40, but we are less than 40. But there have been situations and instances where the developer has come in and they have put some type of a binding agreement in place that an investor can't buy the property, the initial purchase. There's a time frame. There's some things that can. I've seen it done. I don't know the legalities of what it works. If it's there, we'll do it, because the worst thing that we can do would be to put a product out there that we're very proud of and have an investor come in and buy 5 of them or 10 of them. And then all of a sudden it turns into a rental neighborhood when we've made all these promises to the neighbors, to you, to the city of Ogden, that this was about ownership, and then investors come in and start buying it all up and it ends up being rentals anyway. That, if there's a way to get around that, we're going to find it, because we do not want to put this out there as a rental type of property. We have put some good amenities in there, just in that preliminary plat you saw there. Very preliminary. We put that together just visually so you could kind of see how it may lay out. It has a gazebo in there, plenty of off-street parking. We initially put in a gate. We've been told that probably isn't needed in there. You know, we're just going to go with what the market will bear, but if it needs that. Oh, another thing, we anticipate that the retail price of these houses, and I will probably exceed the majority of the single family homes that surround this property on a retail level. So it's not going to be something that comes in and hurts the neighborhood or creates some type of a lower income. This is going to be affordable. There's no question about that, but it's not going to be low income. Anything, Rick, you'd like to touch on?
This R2S zone I'm so excited about it. I think the planning staff and the council and everyone involved, it's cutting edge. I've actually spoken on it a couple times at planning and land use meetings throughout the state. And I'm really proud of what we've done as a community. And I think it goes farther than anyone else in the state in terms of trying to meet that missing middle. We've over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've probably approved 2,000 apartment units in Ogden. Every time a project comes in, as a commissioner, I ask, what is your plan? And they always say, almost every time, well, you know, we'd like to sell them. And the only one I can think of that actually has been a for sale product is the little development at 16th and Harrison, and they only have 2 units left, and those sold for about 440. Our target price, we're hoping to be at or under 400,000, and depending on how, you know, the utilities and everything else work out, you know, if we can do it for less, great. But it's that commitment, that desire, that belief in homeownership as this foundational tenet of American democracy, and the ability to create wealth and not be a serf working for a feudal lord. And I think we're honestly in danger of losing that in this country if we don't meet the starter home opportunities. And I think Ogden, with these types of pockets, is in a great position to lead the way on that. And so we're really excited for the future and the opportunities these sorts of developments hold for our children, our grandchildren. So
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council?
I have a comment. I don't know if it's a question. It might turn into a question. Interestingly enough, we received an email this week about some challenges on the 800 or the 8th Street on the 200 block, which is right behind this property. And looking at some of the concerns that were brought forward by some of the residents in the area about the space and getting in and out, and you know, addressing maybe some of the challenges with that road, the road, maybe expanding that. I'm just wondering if this type of a development would help address some of the crime issues that we've heard about in that area, if it would help address some of the access, you know, getting police and fire in, getting some of those things. And so I don't know, it's just something I just thought was really interesting, that as we're looking at this project, or this is coming before us, that we received a notice or an email, and it's been going on for a while, I guess. And still a lot of follow-up to do on that on my end, but just thought that was interesting, I guess.
one additional comment that I think is germane is that actually, if you look, the R4 parcel where the townhomes are and this parcel were originally owned by the same family. So when they sold the R4 parcel on the deed for the R4, it reserves a 30-foot right-of-way access for this parcel. So that doesn't show on our legal description. It shows on the adjacent legal description because it's not part of our property, but that is there and reflected. So we do have a legal right-of-way in and out of there. And then that 8th Street is so narrow, it's really a challenge. And this Chester Street, if streets had gone through years ago, I think this would have been Lincoln going through there essentially. But to the north, people have bought the property, and I think was vacated years ago. So there's really no opportunity to continue that street through. But I've been there. The home that's on the property is currently rented to a single mom and her 2 daughters who moved in from Roy. And I've been there evening, afternoon, mornings, and just have never seen significant traffic from the townhomes there. And I've sometimes gone out on 9th down to Wall, or gone to up to Washington, just south of your place of business. And you can also access it through Lincoln to 12th Street. So there's a lot of good circulation from there through the surrounding neighborhood.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
coming. Thanks. Okay, what are the next steps on this one?
Yeah,
Go for
yep.
it.
So possible next steps. This is another one we were thinking of February 20th. This one does not need to be a public hearing. That was already done with the Planning Commission, but notice will be sent out for public input at this meeting. This will be a regular city council meeting, possibly on the 20th if you'd like it to be on there. Possible options for that meeting are: you could approve the rezone because there's an ordinance that's been prepared for you to approve. In that meeting, you can deny the rezone if you wanted to. You could also table it to a later date at that meeting if some things come up that you'd like addressed.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks. Okay. Last but not least, we invite Mayor Brown, our Chief Administrative Officer, to give us a legislative update.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here this evening. Chair Choberka had requested a couple specific bills, so I'll wait and just until she gets back to address those, but.
She just went to grab some.
Let's just started on those. Everybody would be, yeah, that does happen sometimes. You know.
I just looked at the clock and thought, oh.
I know,
better
it's time.
leave.
you know.
Nothing
Gave me
personal.
a chance to take a breath or two. So we do have a few things. Ogden City actively participates in the League of Cities and Towns, and so we're often working with them and following the bills that they're tracking and discussing and asking for cities' input and response on. So to start with a couple of those, one that we are concerned about right now is HB 289, the Property Rights Ombudsman amendments. And this is Representative Birkeland, and I understand because I've heard her comment a few times that she's had some constituents that have had land use concerns and feeling that a lot of times there's a lot of expense associated with resolving those concerns in litigation, and so her bill would basically strengthen some of the provisions in the ombudsman amendments, but so currently under current Utah law, there's an office of the property rights ombudsman, and that office is really for the purpose of helping to mediate land use disputes and get a neutral third-party advisory opinion before a significant amount of time and money are spent litigating that dispute. So it's really by nature meant to not necessarily even be binding, but as a quicker process to hopefully resolve a dispute between a private entity like a developer, a home builder, and a city, or even an individual and a city. And Ogden City has taken advantage of that ombudsman process a number of times, and we've benefited from that and maybe make some changes and things. And so, but this particular bill would have some provisions that essentially almost turn that into more of a like a binding decision or a binding process rather than just an advisory opinion. And it takes away some of the judicial discretion where so basically where currently a district court would have discretion whether or not to award legal fees to a prevailing party, the legislation would propose a change to shall. And so if the same matter were brought before a court, then the prevailing party, shall get legal fees. It removes some discretion by the courts to impose a civil penalty of $250 a day, which is currently discretionary, and also adds the district court would be able to award consequential damages. And so it really is something that as cities and the League of Cities and Towns feels like there's other avenues to explore. That we have a land use task force where we look at changes in land use legislation over the course of the year. That task force has advocated for having a land use court, so that could be another solution to resolving property disputes. And so that's just something that Ogden, Ogden, it could also be potentially negative for Ogden. As I said, we've used the ombudsman as an informal process, and this would kind of take away the intent of that process. And so right now, the league is asking cities to reach out to their representatives at this point because it's a pass-through committee and it's on the third reading calendar of the House. At least it was earlier today. So that's just an example of where we work with the league, and there's, if there's collective concern for something that might harm all cities, then we can all get on board to try to get some changes to those bills. There's another bill that we're following that Councilmember White spoke in favor of this morning to the Chamber Legislative. Yeah, it was so long ago. It was like, basically 12 hours ago. But you spoke in favor of that bill, and we're also in favor. It would put some guidelines around how a city might be able to implement a transportation fee. There was litigation down in Pleasant Grove a number of years ago that that for a while it went on appeal, but an issue of whether was that an unlawful tax or was it a permissible fee, and it on appeal the court held that it was actually a permissible fee. And so it does validate an opportunity for cities to add on like a transportation fee. Could be something just, to raise a specific amount of funds for a particular purpose. Our surrounding communities here in Ogden, like North Ogden, South Ogden, do that. We haven't done it as a city, but we support the bill because it just gives us another option in the future if we so choose to use that process. So we're supporting that one. There's a couple, two other bills are just a couple that have already passed that I think Chair Chaburka has asked me to address. And one of them was also a Representative Birkeland bill on, that turned into, it's been already signed by the governor, but right now it kind of boils down to evaluating for the city whether we have like single stall changing areas so that there can be some, private areas, whether for individuals or families who want to use those. And so we're in the process of evaluating the Marshall White Center, for example, there in the new construction that already has been planned out for single changing areas. And so there's no concerns about that, but we're looking right now at probably the highest priority after that would be the Lauren Farr area. And there could be some spaces that we could accommodate that. So we're looking into that, and I can update that another time, but it's something that we've had our facility staff out looking at,
Great.
especially how it
appreciate
would
that.
affect that
Yeah,
bill.
we had a little talk about even this floor for there's designated women's and men's restrooms, but maybe somewhere for public access, we need to have a unisex space
Mhm.
for people to be able to access, because that's part of the bill too.
Yeah, and so we've asked for the facilities to look at all of those, but I think my understanding was the changing areas were kind of a priority to look at. So, but we'll be looking at all city facilities. And then there was I think there's been some concern in our community and what the impact of HB 261, that kind of the diversity, equity, inclusion
Equal opportunity.
bill, equal
yes.
opportunity, and that was also signed by the governor. But we looked at that as that was moving through. It had gone through several changes, and at this point, we don't feel that it will have an impact or prohibit the work that's that our diversity commission or our diversity affairs coordinator. We've looked at the definition in the bill of what a prohibited discriminatory practice would be, or a prohibitive training, and the city doesn't currently do that. As you could probably remember from when we established the diversity commission, it was established out of a recognition of the many diverse communities that we have in Ogden. And so we do, part of that, the governmental interest that we adopted in creating the Diversity Commission was specifically to identify, resolve issues, promote equity, cultivate positive cultural awareness, promote cultural traditions, enhance the well-being and quality of life of those living in or visiting visiting Ogden. And we do try to promote a representation from a reasonably broad spectrum of the community, and we give some examples of that, but there's no mandate, built into that. But we do say that members must live, work, or volunteer, or worship, or be enrolled in school within the city of Ogden. So that's a requirement, but we do try to seek representation from a broad spectrum of our community. And there's language in the bill that when you do, I don't believe that's promoting differential treatment of any individuals, but it indicates there's an exception when there is an important governmental interest. And so I think we just, have recognized through that work that it's important to Ogden City to recognize that we're a diverse community and to meet the needs. And so we've looked at that and feel
Great.
comfortable
Well, I
with that.
appreciate you looking at that. And I just was curious, like, I know even in the private sector, some people are changing titles, as far as, VP of Diversity Affairs or something. It might be, I think my friend's, her title changed to VP of Culture or Belonging or something like that. So I just didn't know if Linda would change her title,
We've looked at that. Well, we're going to be meeting about that to look to see if there's any changes like that we might, a word change here or there. But as far as just the substantive work that's being done, we're comfortable with that. But we will look to see if there's any word changes that just might. I think my understanding was that wasn't 100% clear on whether, like, the word diversity in and of itself alone would be one that we had changed, but
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
so we'll be doing that. And then we do, one other one, I think the mayor's here as well. He may want to speak a little bit more about this, but about the request for appropriation. Since you're here, if you'd like to talk about that a little bit. There was just a question on how we're proceeding and so the idea
Thanks for
of
joining
water.
us.
Yep. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and I would have been here sooner, wrapping up another meeting. Did you already sort of explain the project? Is it?
No, since you were here, I thought I would tee that one up for you. So
Okay, and then we'll get to some of the concerns we've heard. So I think you guys are aware we've been asking for money on funding the water line for the last 3 sessions, I think. Been met with various stages of denial on that request, but one of the big concerns we heard was that the state doesn't want to support local projects just hat in hand. And so when we approached the state, we approached them from a different perspective and said, we're not here asking for a handout, we're asking for a partnership. And so that kind of got their attention, and we just sort of reconsidered the water line in terms of not just local infrastructure, but in terms of water conservation and state goals of putting water in the lake. So we have a goal to deliver water, replace aging infrastructure, capture savings and conservation. They have a goal of conservation and putting water in the lake, et cetera. So we sort of devised a proposal where we could tap into excess water rights that we currently have for future development, combined with water that would be saved through conservation from the repair of the aging infrastructure. Capture that as savings, and then make a short-term commitment to deliver that water to the Great Salt Lake via Willard Spur, where the spur is a portion of the lake. If you're driving past Willard Bay, if you're driving north, Willard Bay's on your left, it's just immediately on the other side of Willard Bay. It's a really shallow and flat area that gets really anoxic and hot and warm. Dissolved oxygen is really low, and it creates conditions for a bacterial outbreak that releases toxins that create botulism. And then the botulism has an outbreak in waterfowl and shorebirds. And the peak of the die-off of waterfowl and shorebirds is in Willard Spur, to the tune of tens of thousands of birds each year. And really the only solution to it is to inject fresh water into the spur in the height of that outbreak. So if the bacterial outbreak is peaking in July, it's starting to climb in July, it peaks in August, and then it tails off in September. The proposal to the state was if we were able to deliver water in August to the spur, which is a difficult thing to find, that we could clip the peak off of that outbreak of the toxins and the bacteria. And they were incredibly intrigued when we pitched the idea, and they wanted to know, well, how much water, how often, et cetera. I think it was last year in the last legislative session, they put a provision in state law that allowed for water that's sent to the Great Salt Lake to be considered a quote beneficial use. As long as water is being used for beneficial use in law, we're not subject to the use it or lose it provisions in water law. So they've also created opportunities for short-term leasing, not selling or giving of the right. So we would be able to hold on to it for the long term. And then in a short-term agreement with the state, lend the water to them for that beneficial use. The real value of the water is more than just a market rate for M&I. That has sort of a going rate, but the value would be the M&I plus the time and the place of delivery. So we worked out a way to use some of our water that would be stored in Pineview. Imagine it would have to go all the way down the Ogden River, diverted into the Willard Canal, and then taken from the Willard Canal into a smaller canal and routed all the way around to the spur. We'd be subject to a lot of loss and inefficient use, potentially even theft along the way. So in talking with Weber Basin, they've offered an ability for us to sort of trade where our water would be coming from. So they would like to keep it higher in the basin up at Pineview, and they could release it directly from Willard Bay, which is the outlet structure is immediately at Willard Spur. So it would have a much
I might
cooler.
need like a whole map. I think
Kind
I've
of,
been there before, so
right?
I can kind of picture it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm waving my arms around a lot and picturing a map in my head. I don't know what you guys are picturing, but so anyway, oh, it's got to be better than that. Anyway, that's the proposal, is that we enter into a partnership where we offer some of our water for a short period of time, rather than, because we draw our water from two different tranches, from a Pineview and from a Weber Basin well, and we kind of go back and forth so as to stay compliant. So our water department has done a ton of work to evaluate our rights. We've had legal vet the idea. We'd still be able to hang on to our rights in the long term for future development. And we could provide a service to the state of Utah, help have a beneficial ecological impact, and gain some support financially, we hope, to help us repair our infrastructure. Now, the other thing is there are other ancillary benefits to the proposal which give it a little more value. One being that the North American Wetland Conservation Act, NACA, is something in congressional legalese that allows states to compete for wetland conservation dollars. And this would be considered a state appropriation for match for federal NACA grants. So the state's really excited, not just for the impacts it could have for a botulism outbreak, but also for potential to leverage it. We think up to about $6 million in federal funds for wetland conservation as well. So kind of an outside the box thought. I pitched it in our first week and the legislative team was like, okay, like just a different look on trying to make our requests more attractive and more appealing for support.
So that's Weber Basin building on that. It sounds like it meets one of their criteria.
Yeah, they like the idea too. They love it because it gets to their concern of aging infrastructure, which is where there's the most loss and the most opportunity for conservation. They also like it certainly for delivery to the lake. Like all of us, they probably have concerns about how much we do this because it does tap into supply, right? So ideally, it would be good, I think, this isn't from them, just in my mind, is if we went into the Jordan, the Weber, and the Bear, all of which feed the lake, so that we're not tapping too much into one basin and one supply. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask the question. I'm kind of, this reuse project they're trying to get fast is going through my mind, and I'm wondering if this maybe helps to almost eliminate their need for that reuse. And how much of this water that gets to the spur will just pass through the spur and end up in the lake? Is that?
Yes, it goes past through to the lake.
Okay.
On the former question, I think I might have had some confusion as well at the sewer board there tonight. So I've got to revisit that. I can't answer that one with clarity.
I've been working on it for a while. Let's talk.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Thanks. I brought it up this morning as more of a making sure that we all are on board. A couple of things, I appreciate it's at least not giveaway, so that really helped. I'm curious why the county was so quick to jump on board, but that's for another day maybe. The only other thing is, as you're building this into it, I guess I'm looking in the future, and if we need those rights back for future development, which I'm not sure that we will, just because, I think we're fairly built out, but the reliance on that water will become very important to the state. How do we take it back from them? And so, I guess maybe teeing it up to say that we may need it at some point in time.
Oh, 100%.
And having them understand what that means if we take it back. So.
Yeah, so it's a concern that we share, and actually some of the input we've got from some of the other lawmakers, they share as well. And we have not been willing to talk in terms beyond 10 years. Anything that's gone beyond 10, I've personally just felt uncomfortable talking about long-term need and supply. We've even considered maybe having like a total number that we provide over time. And that, because right now we're really, really comfortable with 1,500 acre feet per year in kind of one shot. That would be that cool, fresh pulse. The reality is there's probably more, but we just want to be really conservative to make sure that we're meeting our needs. But just yesterday, in talking with some legislators, they're very comfortable giving us provisions for emergency super drought circumstances. And if we were talking about a total number instead of like a certain number per year for a number of years, then that total number might allow us more flexibility based on what the actual demand is each year. And then the quicker we deliver it, the quicker we're out and moving on. So we've got a lot of options. There's no one really painting us into any of those corners. But we're having really good discussions. And frankly, I think the concept has just really perked a lot of ears as a really innovative way of partnering. What I pitched to the speaker is the Utah way. And this is just how we are in Utah. We come together and leverage one another's time, talent, and treasury to achieve mutual benefit.
What kind of numbers are we trying to get from them?
Thank you.
That's
Yeah. What side of the equation?
Yeah.
How many hundreds of millions are we talking here?
Yeah.
Just kidding. We are asking for 10 million in return. So there's some negotiation back and forth.
10% of the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They certainly don't, they've proven they're not willing to pay for a lot, much more than that. This is a much more agreeable number, but it could be anywhere from 0 to 10 for all we know, depending on how it goes. But that's the nature of the discussions. And frankly, it was an idea that I pitched I took office, and then 2 weeks later, the legislative session started. I pitched it to the legislative team on week 2, like the beginning of week 2. And then I pitched it to the speaker, I think the next week, just saying, hey, I just have an idea. And if you hate it, just tell me, and we won't spend a lot of energy and time. And he's like, vet it, I like it, but I want no more. And then the next week we assembled the water division, and we had lawyers with water background join the team. And then the next week we were able to put together a proposal, and then the next week an RFA. So it's kind of gone from idea to proposal kind of quickly. But as we've shared the idea, Great Salt Lake Commissioner, for example, they're really interested in it because it meets a lot of mutual needs. And they're just a lot more likely to say yes to local requests when the answer of what are you willing to do for the people of Utah has an offer, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the angle of the pitch and we'll see how far it gets us.
Well, I appreciate the quick update. I know that we're kind of running out of time today, but I'm sure we'll hear more details and maybe a map later because not everybody's had the water tour yet, which I highly recommend. It's very fascinating.
Thank you.
Any other business, Glenn, before we go?
2
Thank you,
seconds.
Mayor.
So I asked Steve to do it, but I'm gonna do it just because it's quicker. We need a couple of volunteers for the Code of Conduct Committee. So if you're interested in that,
Code of conduct.
let us know. Thank you.
Sign it. Thank you.